Unaware his pregnant wife was richer than his entire family, a husband watched his mother pour dirty water over her at their luxury anniversary party and laughed. The pregnant wife stood frozen as the dirty water hit her 7-month belly first, soaking through her cream dress, streaming down to where her baby girl kicked inside her. Her husband's laughter echoed through the ballroom, cruel, loud, deliberate, as his mistress in red gripped his arm, giggling at the sight of his pregnant wife drenched and trembling. His mother held the empty bowl high, announcing to 400 guests at the luxury anniversary party, "This is what happens to gold diggers who trick their way into real families." But what the husband didn't know while laughing at his pregnant wife covered in dirty water, what his entire family didn't know as they smiled at her humiliation, was that his pregnant wife was richer than his entire family, their mansion, their businesses, everything they owned combined. And what she did next didn't just shock him. It left his mother devastated, his mistress destroyed, and his entire family's world shattered in less than 10 minutes. But how does a pregnant wife, soaking wet and publicly humiliated at her own luxury anniversary party, destroy an entire family? What made her richer than his entire family? And why did the husband's laughter turn to desperate sobbing? 6 hours earlier, Elizabeth Hartford arrived at the Sinclair Hotel ballroom wearing a cream-colored maternity gown that cost $45,000. She'd bought it that morning with cash from an account her husband Oliver didn't know existed. The ballroom glittered under 6 massive crystal chandeliers, each one worth more than a luxury car. White roses covered every surface. An orchestra played softly in the corner. 400 of the city's wealthiest people mingled with champagne glasses, their jewelry catching the light like stars. Elizabeth's hand rested on her pregnant belly as she walked through the entrance. Her daughter kicked against her palm, strong and healthy, 7 months along. She'd waited for tonight to tell Oliver they were having a girl. She had the ultrasound photos in her clutch, wrapped in blue tissue paper. She wanted this night to be perfect. She wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, Oliver would choose her over his mother for once. Stupid girl. Camilla Thompson stood at the center of the ballroom in a gold gown that screamed, "Look at me. I paid for all of this." She wore white gold dripping with diamonds. Her hair was swept up like a crown. She moved through the crowd accepting compliments, directing staff, making sure everyone knew this party was her creation. Oliver stood beside her like an obedient child, nodding at everything she said. That was Elizabeth's husband, 33 years old and still terrified of disappointing Mommy. Camilla's eyes found Elizabeth across the room. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. She said, "Something to Oliver?" He looked over at his pregnant wife, and his face didn't light up, didn't soften. He just looked away. Elizabeth's chest tightened. She recognized that look. She'd seen it 100 times over the past year. That's the look Oliver gave her when his mother was watching, like she was an embarrassment, like he regretted everything. A waiter offered Elizabeth sparkling cider. She took it with a smile even though her hands were shaking. The ballroom felt too hot suddenly, too bright. She wanted to leave, but she'd promised herself she'd try one more time, for their daughter, for the family she'd dreamed they could be. Camilla approached, gliding across the marble floor like a predator. "Elizabeth," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "How appropriate. Cream, like something that's about to curdle." Her eyes dropped to Elizabeth's pregnant belly. "And getting rather large, aren't we? Are you sure it's not twins? Or perhaps just too many trips to the dessert table?" Laughter rippled through the group around them. Elizabeth felt her face burn. She touched her belly protectively. "It's a healthy pregnancy, Camilla. The doctor says everything is perfect." "Well, doctors can be wrong," Camilla said sweetly. "But I suppose we'll see soon enough, though I can't imagine what kind of mother you'll make, considering where you came from." Where she came from. Camilla loved that phrase. She used it like a weapon. What Camilla meant was poor. What she meant was worthless. What she meant was, you don't belong here. Elizabeth had spent the past year enduring Camilla's cruelty, being forced to serve drinks at family gatherings while Camilla sat like a queen, being made to clean up after dinner parties, being told to wear an apron because it suits you better than designer clothes you clearly can't afford. Being pushed down the stairs 4 months ago, Camilla claimed Elizabeth had tripped, but Elizabeth remembered the hand on her back, the shove, the terror of falling while pregnant. Oliver had believed his mother. Of course he had. But tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was their anniversary. Surely tonight, Oliver would see her. Really see her. See the woman he'd claimed to love. See the mother of his child. Elizabeth excused herself and headed toward the bathroom. She needed a moment, just one moment to breathe. But as she passed a partially open door near the service hallway, she heard voices, familiar voices, Oliver's voice. "Mother, are you sure about this? She is my wife, and she's pregnant." Camilla's laugh was cold. "Oh, darling, that's exactly why we're doing this tonight. Before that baby comes and complicates everything, Jessica is perfect for you. Her father owns half the commercial real estate in 3 states. The Wellington name actually means something. This girl you married? She has nothing. No family worth mentioning. No money. No connections. She's been dragging the Thompson name through the mud for a year." Elizabeth pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering. Her baby kicked frantically, like she could sense her mother's panic. "But the baby," Oliver started. "Will be provided for," Camilla interrupted. "We're not monsters. She'll get child support, a modest amount. Enough to keep her quiet, but you'll have custody, obviously. We'll make sure of that. A woman with no resources, no family, no stability, no judge would give her full custody, and then you'll be free to marry Jessica, to build the life you deserve." Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then Oliver said, "If you think that's best, Mother. If you think that's best, Mother. Not I love my wife, not that's cruel and wrong, not we have a child together, just if you think that's best, Mother." Elizabeth's hand went to her mouth. She tasted salt, realized she was crying. Her legs felt weak. Her daughter kicked again, harder this time, and Elizabeth whispered, "I know, baby, I know. Mommy's going to fix this." She didn't confront them, didn't scream or throw things. Instead, she walked calmly back to the ballroom, found a quiet corner, and made a phone call. "Daddy," she said when Jonathan Hartford answered, "I need you to do something for me. I need you to destroy the Thompson family, legally, completely, and I need it done by tonight." Her father's voice on the phone was ice and fire at the same time. "Elizabeth, what happened? Are you hurt? Is the baby—" "We're fine," Elizabeth said, though her voice cracked on the word fine. "But I need you to listen. I need you to do exactly what I'm about to ask." Jonathan Hartford had built a $4.2 billion empire from nothing. He'd taught his daughter that power wasn't about being loud, it was about being prepared, and Elizabeth had been preparing for 3 months. Ever since the night Camilla pushed her down the stairs and Oliver believed his mother's lie instead of his wife's tears. "Tell me everything," her father said. Elizabeth told him about the conversation she'd just overheard, about the plan to humiliate her tonight, to take her daughter, to replace her with Jessica Wellington like she was a broken appliance. Her father's breathing got heavier with every word. "I'll have my lawyers there in 20 minutes, he said. "We'll shut this whole thing down right now. We'll—" "No," Elizabeth interrupted. "Let them do it. Let them think they've won. I want them to have their moment. I want Camilla to feel powerful. I want Oliver to think he's free. And then I want to take everything." Her father was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You sound just like me. What do you need?" "The documents we prepared, all of them. Have Marcus bring them. Tell him to blend in with the guests. And Daddy?" Her voice hardened. "Make sure the media is recording, every second." When Elizabeth returned to the ballroom, she looked like she'd been crying. Good. Let them think she was weak. Let them think she was breaking. Camilla saw her red eyes and smiled like she'd won a prize. The party continued. Dinner was served on gold-rimmed china, filet mignon and lobster, a 5-tier cake covered in edible gold, champagne flowing like water. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked expensive. But Elizabeth knew the truth. The Thompsons were drowning in debt. That mansion everyone admired, mortgaged 3 times over. The family business? Hemorrhaging money for 5 years, propped up by loans from banks that were about to call them in. Oliver's trust fund? Managed by a company that was 2 quarters from bankruptcy. They were smoke and mirrors. All show, no substance. And for the past 3 months, Elizabeth had been systematically buying every piece of debt they had, through shell companies, through her father's investment firms, through a network so complex the Thompsons never saw it coming. She owned them. She just hadn't told them yet. Camilla stood up to give a speech. The room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth, "thank you all for celebrating this very special anniversary with us. My son Oliver and his wife have been married for 1 year today." Polite applause. Elizabeth sat at the main table, hands folded over her pregnant belly. Oliver sat beside her, not looking at her. Jessica Wellington sat 3 tables away in that red dress, smiling like a cat with cream. Marriage is about partnership, Camilla continued. It's about 2 families coming together, 2 people who are equals in every way, who bring equal value to the union. Elizabeth knew what was coming. She could feel it, building like a storm. But sometimes, Camilla's voice turned sharp, we make mistakes. Sometimes we let people into our families who don't belong, who can't contribute, who take and give nothing back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People shifted uncomfortably. Oliver stared at his plate. Coward. And sometimes, Camilla said, walking toward Elizabeth with something hidden behind her back, we have to correct those mistakes, publicly, so everyone understands that the Thompson family has standards. She pulled out a metal bowl, the same bowl the kitchen staff used for dirty mop water. Elizabeth could smell it from where she sat, bleach and grime and filth. The room went dead silent. This, Camilla announced, holding the bowl high, is where you belong, Elizabeth. Not at our table, not in our family, in the dirt where you came from. And then she poured it. The dirty water hit Elizabeth's head first. Ice cold, reeking of chemicals and garbage, it soaked through her hair, streaming down her face, drenching her $45,000 dress. But worst of all, it poured over her pregnant belly, over where her daughter grew, and Elizabeth felt her baby kick frantically in panic. Her hands flew to her stomach. Her mouth opened in a gasp that could have been a scream, but came out silent. Water dripped from her chin, from her eyelashes, pooling on the floor around her feet. And behind her, Oliver laughed. Actually laughed. His mistress Jessica grabbed his arm, giggling, and Oliver bent over, his laughter echoing through the ballroom like knives. Other people laughed too. Some covered their mouths, shocked. Some pulled out phones to record. But Oliver, the father of her child, the man who'd promised to love her, laughed the loudest. Camilla held the empty bowl like a trophy. "This is what happens to gold diggers who trick their way into real families," she announced to the 400 guests in the cameras that were now pointed directly at them. Elizabeth stood there, dripping, her dress clinging to her pregnant body, her hair plastered to her face, her hands protectively cradling her belly where her frightened daughter kicked and kicked. Everyone expected her to run, to cry, to break down sobbing and flee the ballroom in shame. Instead, Elizabeth slowly lifted her head. Water streamed down her face, but her eyes were completely dry, clear, focused. She looked directly at Camilla, and she smiled. Not a sad smile, not a broken smile. A smile that made Camilla's triumphant expression falter, a smile that made Oliver's laughter catch in his throat. "Thank you, Camilla," Elizabeth said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "That's exactly what I needed." Confusion rippled through the crowd. Camilla's face twisted. "What? What are you talking about?" Elizabeth calmly reached into her clutch, somehow still dry, and pulled out her phone. One text. That's all it took. The lights dimmed. The massive screens on either side of the stage that had been showing romantic photos of her and Oliver's wedding flickered to life. Legal documents appeared, crystal clear, impossible to misread. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elizabeth said, her voice steady and strong despite being soaked in dirty water. "Let me introduce myself properly. My name isn't just Elizabeth Thompson, it's Elizabeth Hartford. My father is Jonathan Hartford, founder and CEO of Hartford Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of it?" The reaction was immediate. Gasps, shouts, phones coming out to record faster. Someone near the back yelled, "The Hartford Technologies? $4 billion, Hartford?" Camilla's face went white as bone. "That's right," Elizabeth continued. The screens behind her showed her birth certificate, her trust fund documents, photos of her at Hartford company events, everything that proved who she really was. "And for the past year, while Camilla Thompson was treating me like hired help, making me scrub her toilets, pushing me downstairs while I was pregnant, I endured it. Because I loved your son. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, love mattered more than money." Oliver tried to stand. "Elizabeth, I didn't know." "Sit down," she said. Her voice cracked like a whip. He sat. The screens changed. New documents appeared. Acquisition papers, debt transfers, foreclosure notices. "But 3 months ago, I heard Camilla planning this, planning to humiliate me, planning to take my daughter, planning to replace me like I was garbage." Elizabeth's voice rose, powerful, carrying to every corner of that massive ballroom. "So I did what my father taught me to do. I bought you." Camilla made a choking sound. "Thompson Manufacturing? I own 68% of shares. Your commercial real estate? Foreclosed 3 weeks ago. Purchased by Hartford Holdings. That's mine." The screens showed each transaction. Legal, verified, undeniable. This hotel where we're standing? I bought it last Tuesday. Your mansion, Camilla? The one you love so much? You missed 4 mortgage payments. I bought that mortgage. I own your home. Elizabeth turned to Oliver, her husband, the father of her child. Your trust fund, Oliver. The management company declared bankruptcy yesterday. It's now owned by Hartford Financial Services. That's also mine. Oliver's face had gone gray. He looked like he might vomit. Everything you think you have? Elizabeth spread her arms, water still dripping from her cream-colored gown. I own it. Your cars, your boats, your country club membership, your mother's jewelry collection that's actually been sold to pay debts and replaced with fakes. Yes, Camilla, those diamonds you're wearing right now, cubic zirconia, the real ones were auctioned off 6 months ago. Camilla's hands flew to her neck, touching the necklace like it had burned her. The ballroom erupted, people shouting, cameras flashing, security trying to maintain order. But Elizabeth wasn't finished. I could destroy you completely, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. I could evict you tomorrow, liquidate everything, leave you with nothing but the clothes on your backs, and legally, I have every right to do exactly that. Camilla collapsed into a chair, hyperventilating. Someone brought her water, but she couldn't drink it. Her hands were shaking too hard. Oliver finally found his voice. Elizabeth, please, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were... I didn't know I was rich, Elizabeth interrupted, or didn't know your mother was bankrupting you. Because I'm not sure which one is worse, Oliver, but you know what you did know. You knew your mother pushed me down the stairs. You knew she made me sleep in the guest house. You knew she poured dirty water on your pregnant wife at our anniversary party. And you laughed. Her voice broke on that last word. Just for a second, just enough to show that underneath the power and the money and the revenge, there was a woman who'd loved someone who destroyed her. I loved you, she whispered. The microphone picked it up, carried it to every corner. I would have given you everything, my whole heart, my whole life. We could have built an empire together, but you chose her. Every single time, you chose your mother's cruelty over your wife's dignity. Oliver stood up, reaching for her. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry, please. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Anything? Elizabeth pulled out another document from her clutch. Then sign this. It was divorce papers. Already prepared, already notarized. Oliver's face crumbled. No, please, don't do this. Think about our daughter. I am thinking about our daughter. Elizabeth's voice rang out, powerful and fierce. I'm thinking about what kind of father would laugh while his wife was humiliated. What kind of man would let his mother abuse the woman carrying his child? What kind of family would take my daughter away from me because they thought I was too poor to fight back? She placed the divorce papers on the table in front of him. Sign them now, or I will bury your family so deep you'll never see daylight again. Oliver's hand trembled as he picked up the pen. His mistress, Jessica, still in that red dress, tried to slip toward the exit. She didn't make it 2 steps before security. Elizabeth's security blocked her path. Where do you think you're going, Jessica? Elizabeth called out. The room fell silent again. You were so happy to laugh at me 5 minutes ago. Stay. Watch what happens when you destroy the wrong woman's life. Jessica's face went pale. She looked at Oliver for help. He couldn't even look at her. He was staring at the divorce papers like they were a death sentence. Sign them, Oliver, Elizabeth said. Her voice was quiet now, but somehow that made it more terrifying. Or I'll tell everyone here about the gambling debts you've been hiding, the $200,000 you've lost in the past 6 months, the loan sharks who've been calling your office. Should I pull up those documents too? Oliver's head snapped up. How did you... I know everything, Elizabeth said simply. I've known for months. I know about the failed investments, the insider trading investigation that's coming for you next quarter, the money you've been stealing from your mother's accounts to cover your losses. Should we talk about all of that right now, in front of everyone? Camilla gasped. Oliver, you've been stealing from me? Oliver's face flushed red. Shame and anger and panic all mixed together. Mother, I can explain. Sign the papers, Elizabeth interrupted. Now, or I'll have my lawyers explain everything to the district attorney instead. The pen shook in Oliver's hand. He looked around the ballroom, at the 400 people watching his complete destruction, at the cameras recording every second, at his mother who'd orchestrated this whole nightmare, at his mistress who'd laughed at his pregnant wife. And then he signed, his signature scratched across the paper. Final. Irreversible. Elizabeth took the documents, folded them carefully, and placed them back in her clutch. Thank you, she said. Then she turned to address the crowd one final time. I want everyone here to understand something. I'm not cruel. I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this because cruelty has to have consequences. because nobody should treat another human being the way this family treated me. She looked at Camilla, who was still slumped in her chair, mascara running down her face, hands clutching that fake diamond necklace. Camilla, you're going to move out of your mansion by Monday. I'm giving you a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. It's paid for. You'll have a modest pension, enough to live comfortably but quietly. You'll never sit on another board, never chair another charity gala, never have power over another person again. You're done. Camilla let out a sob, an actual sob. The queen dethroned, but Elizabeth wasn't finished. The Thompson Manufacturing Company, I'm signing it back over to the family, along with enough capital to make it actually profitable if you manage it properly. But there are conditions. Camilla steps down from all positions immediately. Oliver, you'll work as a junior analyst, not CEO, not president. You'll earn your way up like everyone else. And if I hear that either of you have mistreated a single employee, a single person, the way you treated me, I'll take it all back. And next time, I won't be merciful. The screens behind her showed the new ownership documents, everything she'd just promised, legally binding, ready to be executed. Oliver looked up at her with something like hope. Elizabeth, does this mean, could we maybe try again for our daughter? I'll change, I swear I'll... No, Elizabeth said flatly. You don't get to change for me now. You should have changed when I was scrubbing your mother's toilets, when I was eating leftovers in the kitchen while your family dined, when she pushed me down the stairs and you believed her instead of me, when she poured dirty water on your pregnant wife and you laughed. She placed her hand on her belly. Her daughter had stopped kicking frantically. She was calm now, like she knew her mother was protecting her. Our daughter will be provided for. Child support will be generous. You'll have visitation rights if you prove you can be a decent father, but you will never, ever be my husband again. You had a woman who would have built an empire with you, a woman who loved you despite having every reason not to. And you threw her away for your mother's approval and a mistress who ran for the exit the second things got difficult. Jessica was crying now, still standing by the door, blocked by security. Elizabeth finally looked at her. Jessica Wellington, you laughed at a pregnant woman being abused. You had an affair with a married man. You helped plan to take my daughter from me. So here's what's going to happen to you. That real estate empire your father owns, 3 of his biggest properties have loans through Hartford Financial. Those loans are being called in Monday morning. Your father has 72 hours to pay back $40 million or lose everything. I suggest you go home and warn him, and maybe explain why one of the richest women in the country is now his enemy. Jessica's sobs got louder. She crumpled against the wall. Security finally let her leave. She ran from the ballroom, her red dress disappearing into the night. The crowd didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Some people were crying, others looked terrified. A few looked at Elizabeth with something like respect. She stood there, still dripping with dirty water, still 7 months pregnant, still the most powerful person in that room. I want everyone here to learn something tonight, Elizabeth said. Her voice carried across the ballroom, soft but strong. You don't know who people really are. You don't know what they're capable of. That woman you treat like garbage might be the one who owns your mortgage. That person you humiliate might be the one who decides your future. Kindness isn't weakness, cruelty isn't strength, and underestimating someone because they choose to be humble? That's the most expensive mistake you'll ever make. She walked toward the exit. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. At the doorway, Elizabeth paused and looked back one final time. Oliver was still sitting at the table, divorce papers in front of him, his whole world destroyed. Camilla was sobbing into her hands, her fake diamonds catching the light. The ballroom that had been full of laughter at her expense was now silent as a grave. Happy anniversary, Elizabeth said. Then she walked out into the night. The cool air hit her wet skin. She was still soaking wet, still covered in dirty mop water, but somehow she'd never felt more powerful, more free. A black car pulled up. The door opened. Her father stepped out, his face full of fury and pride and love. Are you okay, sweetheart? Elizabeth touched her belly. Her daughter kicked, strong, healthy, safe. We're perfect, Daddy, she said. We're finally perfect. She got into the car. The door closed. And as they drove away from the Sinclair Hotel, away from the Thompson family, away from that whole nightmare, Elizabeth looked down at her phone. The video of her humiliation and revenge had already been uploaded to every social media platform by dozens of guests. It was going viral, millions of views in minutes. The comments were flooding in. This is the most satisfying thing I've ever seen. That's what happens when you mess with the wrong woman. I'm crying. She's a queen. Elizabeth smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a victorious smile, just a smile of someone who'd survived something terrible and come out stronger. 3 months later, Elizabeth Hartford gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Hope, because that's what her daughter represented. Hope that Elizabeth could build a better life. Hope that she could be the mother her daughter deserved. Hope that kindness and strength could exist together. Oliver sent gifts, flowers, letters begging for another chance. Elizabeth returned every single one. He had supervised visitation with Hope once a week. He showed up on time. He was gentle with their daughter. Maybe he was learning. Maybe he'd changed. But it didn't matter anymore. That chapter of Elizabeth's life was closed. Camilla Thompson lived in her 2-bedroom apartment and worked part-time at a charity shop. Elizabeth heard she was quieter now, humbler, that she'd started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping women who'd been abused. Maybe humiliation had taught her what decades of wealth and power never could. Empathy. Jessica Wellington's father lost 2 of his properties. The Wellington Empire survived, but barely. Jessica herself moved to another city, another state, another life where nobody knew what she'd done. As for Elizabeth, she took over as co-CEO of Hartford Technologies alongside her father. She used her platform to create programs for women escaping abusive relationships. She donated millions to domestic violence shelters. She became the face of women who refused to be victims. And every night, she held her daughter Hope and whispered, "You are loved, you are valuable, you are powerful, and nobody will ever make you feel small." Because that's what Elizabeth had learned, that real power isn't about money or revenge or destroying your enemies. Real power is protecting yourself and the people you love. It's knowing your worth. It's refusing to accept cruelty as normal. It's standing in a ballroom covered in dirty water, 7 months pregnant, and saying no more. Elizabeth Hartford had been humiliated at her own anniversary party by people who thought she was nothing. And she'd shown them exactly who she was, not with violence, not with screaming, but with the quiet, devastating power of a woman who knew her worth. And that, more than any revenge, was the victory that mattered. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you think, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story like this. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? What would you have done in Elizabeth's position? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today, because everyone deserves to know their worth, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and everyone has the power to say, enough is enough. Your story matters, your strength matters, and you are never ever as powerless as someone wants you to believe.